Welcome back to the Unacceptable News. I'm your host, Justin Bush. I can smell what The Rock is cooking. Delicious. Today's story is an update about the Nazca mummy situation. So it was released today that there was an international scientific paper that had gone out to the scientific community, specifically referring to the mummy known as Maria. Now, Maria is the humanoid elongated skull mummy we'll show you a picture of. And I'm just going to read some of the statements that were made. It was sent out in Spanish. I've done a translation of the conclusion. So we're just going to kind of read some of this in English, and we'll kind of just talk about the paper. We'll show you some recordings of Maria at the end, so you can kind of get a look at what they were using to study Maria. So this study has been submitted several months ago and was accepted just a few days ago, and they've done kind of like a little press announcement of the study's acceptance. It comes out through the Institutional Scientific Committee. The chief editor of the study is Christian Luis de Silva. Now, the assessment is a double-blind review of the evidence. So essentially they had a double-blind review of the evidence, so that way there could be no tampering, there could be no influence. Look at the evidence that they've been able to collect, and to get these statements from scientists to assess, what is actually going on with the body of Maria. Now, one of the biggest parts of this study has been the radiocarbon dating. So let me just read the abstract in English, and then I'll go down and I'll read the conclusion. So it says, objective: report the bioarchaeological case and perform the morpho-anatomical biometric characterization and dating of the antiquity of a tridactyl humanoid specimen found in Nazca, Peru. The method is qualitative approach study of the bioarchaeological case report of a tridactyl humanoid specimen. The imaging analysis applied the Radiant DICOM viewer software version 2024.1 and the age dating technique used radiocarbon 14. Now it goes into the results in discussion. It says the tomographic imaging analysis showed that the specimen is a desiccated human body with a biological architecture similar to that of a human, but with many morphological and anatomical structure differences, such as the lack of hair and ears, an elongated skull, an increase in cranial volume 30% greater than humans, maxillary and mandibular protrusion, as well as the protrusion of the eyeballs, absent of the fifth lumbar vertebrae, tridactyl in both hands and feet. Now it says the carbon-14 dating analysis of the specimen gave an age of 1771 plus or minus 30 years, corresponding to between 240 AD to 383 AD. Implications of the research, if demonstrated with further studies that this is a new humanoid species, it would have a strong impact on biology and scientific, historical, and sociocultural implications. So you have an admission in this study that this is a new humanoid species, that it has enough variance from a normal human being that it would be considered a different species of human. Now, the reason that's so important is because we don't have any living remnants of whoever these people were. In my last video about the Nazca mummies, I said, regardless of whatever you believe, whether they're aliens or not, it really doesn't matter, because we have so much evidence that there is a non-human group, a humanoid group, but a non-human group that has no lineage directly to us. It's essentially, it would be the same as finding a Neanderthal. And we have no information about this group that could give us any indication of who they were, how they evolved to have this. We have enough specimens of them with 3 fingers, 3 toes, things like that, that that this was a living species. This wasn't just one person that had a deformity. You're talking about many specimens with 3 hands, or 3 fingers on a hand, 3 fingers on a foot, elongated skull. You have so many specimens of it that it's a guarantee that whoever they were, they existed, and they were passing down these traits genetically. So this isn't just like a baby that had some sort of massive deformity. It's such important evidence that, the whole reason I'm bringing this to you now is because this is the first real scientific paper that you see going out for peer review. They brought in a team of scientists to analyze the evidence. So it's extremely important. This one document is essentially just showing, hey, all the tests are proving this to be a legitimate specimen of an unknown humanoid. Now we'll go into the conclusion in English. So I have right here. The superficial, morphological, and tomographic imaging analysis concludes that specimen, and the specimen number is M01. So specimen M01 is a desiccated human body with biological architecture similar to that of a human, but with many structural differences and morphological and anatomical singularities. In addition to showing signs of polyarthritis due to the multiple foci of the arthropathies in the spine, hands, and feet. The superficial morphological and imaging analysis of the carpal metacarpal joints of the hands and the tarsal metatarsal joints of the feet do not show obvious signs of having suffered a disarticulation or amputation. This is massively important. When the Ministry of Culture came out against these bodies, so the first thing they said they're just fake, there's nothing here, all that stuff. They did some analysis of the hands and they said, no, these are real bones, this is a real hand. They came back out and said, well, yeah, it's a real hand, but what they did was they took a mummy, they found a mummy, they cut its pinky and thumb off, okay? So just 3 fingers, and then they glued the bones from the thumb and the pinky onto the tips of the other 3 fingers to make them longer. Now, this is something that the Ministry of Culture openly said. They accused the people that found the mummies of this. What they didn't know at the time was only one hand had come out. And so they didn't know that they would find a whole bunch more. And they didn't realize that they would find themselves in the hands of other scientists. So when the Ministry of Culture refused to investigate, other people stepped up to investigate. The conclusion goes on. The carbon-14 dating analysis of specimen M01 reveals an age of 1771 plus or minus 30 years. We talked about that. So it would have had to coexist with ancient Nazca civilization. These findings have an impact and relevance in the field of global research and have the potential to contribute scientifically to the field of bioarchaeology, archaeopathology, archaeology in the Nazca civilization. Providing rigorous scientific data on a unique find in the region and the world. Furthermore, the results of this study will enrich scientific knowledge about the biological and cultural diversity of ancient civilizations and may have a broader implications for the understanding of the history and culture of ancient civilizations in South America. It is expected that the results of the study provide a solid basis for future research in the field of bioarchaeology and archaeology in Nazca, as well as for the preservation and dissemination of the cultural heritage of this region. On the other hand, the incredible findings of this study can contribute to the development of policies for the conservation and management of archaeological heritage, the development of culture, and strengthening the tourism in Nazca and its surroundings. So what these people are essentially saying is, you told people these weren't real, right? And now people are selling them, they're leaving. We have to, the study showed these are legitimate artifacts of a legitimate unknown humanoid. We have to keep them. It's our cultural heritage. Like, these creatures, whatever they are, whoever they are important to, our community. Stop saying they're fake and allowing all these other people to take them. The other thing that's kind of funny is at the very end, the very last line is essentially kind of throwing the government a bone. Like, this could be good for tourism, right? So the scientists are basically saying, like, not only is this the most important, discovery for archaeology, but also, guess what? You can make some money off it. So it's kind of like, and scientists do this a lot. You can read a bunch of other papers, scientific papers, where they basically need funding, right, to do the research and stuff. And so they essentially, like, they'll put all this research, great research, and then at the end they'll say, this could be the next communication technology. And all of a sudden businesses and countries go, oh, could it? And then all of a sudden you see a lot of finance coming in, you see government regulation coming in, you see, major corporations coming in to kind of divvy up who's going to get this next piece of technology. So I find that extremely interesting, talking about tourism in a scientific paper with like a dozen scientists that are involved in this analysis. But anyway, I'm going to show you a video of Maria, and we'll take a look at some of the evidence that they analyzed. So what do you think, right? Do you think these are legitimate bodies? I mean, we've seen newspapers and debunkers attack the Nazca bodies, whatever they might be, for years. I mean, something like 7 years, where it's just been attack after attack. In fact, just a few months ago, we've seen mainstream attacks from some of the biggest newspapers in America. When we sent the American scientific team down to look, they published articles that are like, they're risking their careers to take samples and look at these like, how are you risking your career to look at an archaeological find? So you're like, oh, like, that's crazy. Like, if you find something, it doesn't really matter even what it is. Like, so you have a scientist go down, do rigorous scientific study, and apparently their career is going to be destroyed because they did scientific study the way they're supposed to. It's ridiculous. But anyway, what do you think? I mean, do you think that there's something here, or do you think that this is a massive hoax? Do you think that all these scientists, after 7 years, every one of them has simply been duped, and these are completely fake artifacts that aren't real? That's the news. If you'd like to support our channel, go to the description or in the pinned comment down below. That's the unacceptable news. Don't like, don't subscribe, just run.